here we are at Investec. There's a group of fantastic women here. Events such as these are important because, first of all, they create a safe space for women in business to discuss issues that only pertain to them without actually having to consider the presence of men in the room. So just the creation of a space where women can speak their minds freely, I think, is important.
I think the hot topic on the women agenda is basically women in leadership and in control when it comes to entrepreneurship. Women should be driving the economy, and historically, when you look at a family setup, every woman shapes what the family looks like. So I believe it can be transported to the enterprises and the economy in general. Some of the things I would like to share with the young women is basically the first thing is you need to get focused. And as you are getting focused on your purpose, as you find your purpose, you also need to learn from your mistakes, because nothing is going to be smooth sailing.
First of all, remember that you always have something to learn. There are always things that you don't know, and you have to remain open to listening and learning no matter who you become.
Also, in most cases, get a mentor that would actually help you in getting you around the process.
So keep yourself humble, and I think that ultimately is the best foundation for success.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Women's Month Rising Star Female Forum webinar hosted by Tiger Brands. I'm delighted to see so many of you here, and thank you for continuing to support the Female Forum, even though we can't at this time host the events in person. As many of you know, Rising Star is our program that recognizes the most talented young professionals across South Africa and gives them a platform to connect and rise. It's also fabulous to see great stars here. Welcome. My name is Sima Mayike, Sima Kaleng. I go by Sima in short. Born and bred in Limpopo, mother of two, daughter and a wife. I'm the Human Capital Manager at Discovery Vitality. It's a fancy title, but really what it is I'm an HR manager. Today, however, I have the exciting role of being the facilitator for our interesting discussion today. Many of you may have attended our female forums in person over the last year, and you know that our aim is to create a supportive community where you can express your questions and concerns to experts and leaders where you may not feel so comfortable doing that within your environment. One of the recurring themes throughout our sessions is the relief our participants feel when they realize that we are going through similar issues and that we're not alone in our struggles. So we're here today with the Tiger Brands female leadership team to explore some of our worries and responses to COVID-19. Tiger Brands will discuss two elements: their own response to COVID-19 and also learnings that they've taken on board when it comes to leading remotely. I'm sure many of you rising stars out there have faced these issues in your own organizations and your own teams, and we hope you may find some useful tidbits to keep during the conversation. After each 30 minutes discussion, there will be a 15-minute Q&A, so keep your questions rolling. And furthermore, the Tiger Brands team have generously offered a 1-hour mentorship session to an engaged attendee. So keep that chat going, guys. Stand up and be noticed. We will be sharing the chat logs with Tiger Brands after the event, and they will choose their winner. Right, for those of you who are social media savvy, please follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, my favorite, Instagram, and Twitter. So we will have two topics today, like I said. We will start with the first topic. I've got an amazing panel. We will chat for 30 minutes, then move to the QA. So make sure you send those questions. I will field them and send them through to the panel for answers. Okay, let's get into the first discussion. I've got an amazing panel, like I said. I'm so excited to introduce these ladies to you, trailblazers in their own right. First panelist that I have is Ntombenhle Mabuza. Ntombenhle is currently the Manufacturing Excellence Director at Tiger Brands, a female executive with 20 years experience in FMCG, supply chain excellence, product quality and food safety, safety, health, environment, and compliance. Guys, this lady has done it all. And she's undertaken these roles internationally and locally in the FMCG businesses. She holds a BSc honors in food science. Then I have Jean Mahavia. Jean's career spans over 20 years in corporate, having worked for companies such as AB and Bev, Mutual and Federal, RCL Foods, Investec, and De Beers, amongst others. She has spent years in the reward space and has been responsible for the employee benefits area and served as principal officer of few retirement funds, as well as being trustee of medical aid schemes. We are very blessed to have her on as part of this panel. She holds an MBA with specific focus on rewards management. So, welcome, Jean. Welcome, Ntombenhle. Our discussion is very topical at the moment. The world had to be at a standstill. Borders closed, no flights, and kids and parents at home. I'd like to discuss with my two panelists here on how Tiger Brands has dealt and responded to COVID-19. Ntombenhle, I'm going to start with you. What has been your personal experience during COVID-19? How did the leadership team of Tiger Brands support you in this time?
Good afternoon, Sima and the Rising Stars. It all started, I think it was a Tuesday morning. I got an email that said, I've been a primary contact to a positive case, which means I was a potential positive myself. Of course, being a human being, when you get that email, you panic. So after getting the email, I sent a message to my boss. And of course, it was like, okay, can we speak to safety and see if they can arrange for the nurse to come and test? Because one of the key things that everyone there has known in the company is that I've got a son who's got chronic asthma. So if he catches COVID, our chances are very, very low. I've been very conscious about that. So on the same day, so I got the email at about 9. I think we had made arrangements by 12 to say a nurse will be coming to test the whole family for COVID. And I think they were here at about 4:30, did the test. And of course, we're all 10. I was meant to get the results that committed on Wednesday, but the company kept on giving me feedback. And on the Thursday morning, I was already feeling very sick. And I think when Julie, who's our safety director, actually called me, I said, I actually don't need the results to confirm my status. I know I'm positive, but my concern was my kids. So she she kept on calling the service provider in terms of the laboratory to just follow up where the results were. And as soon as she got the results, she actually even had the courtesy of, she could have just emailed them, but she called me and said, I've received your results, but I've only got your results. I don't have the results for the kids. So you are positive. Of course, it was like, okay. And she said she continued chasing up for the results of the kids. And as soon as she got the results for the kids, I think she was just as excited as she knew how excited I would, because everyone else was negative for that. So so I got a lot of support around that. Then and then of course my doctor had given me antibiotics and stuff, and he had walked me through the process. So Saturday I was improving, but something changed on Sunday night. I just wasn't feeling myself. On Sunday night. Monday morning was horrible. I decided to drive myself to a hospital, to the closest hospital, private hospital. When I got there, there were no beds, and at that time I was really struggling to breathe. There were no beds or there were no isolation beds at the hospital. I was told to wait in my car, and there were two other people that were still waiting for beds in front of me, and I could feel myself deteriorating on the space. And as usual, Julie would normally call me like around about 9. She called, sent a message, and I said, you know what, I'm stuck. I'm waiting, and I really don't know what to do. The nurses don't want me to come out, whatever. She actually took it upon herself to call around, check which other hospitals had beds available. And,
My
and,
goodness.
and when by the time she called back again, she said, okay, go to Glenwood or go to another hospital which had a bed. And by the time, I was actually really deteriorated. And she could pick it up in my voice, and she offered to say, can she actually arrange for people to bring oxygen to my car? I'm like, you know what? Oxygen's not going to help. I need a hospital bed. And she helped me get a bed on that. And I think one thing that I probably want to say is during my whole stay in hospital and at home, I never, not even once, did I feel the pressure to go to work. Even I think I tried to come back to work 3 weeks back, and because you get tired of staying at home and stuff, and went back. I was still coughing. I was weak. The business was like, let's just take your time and recover. So I think I tested positive on the 24th. I only started work this Monday, and even then, the business understands that I can't do long meetings because I start coughing and stuff, and I'm taking it easy. And if in the meeting I feel I can't take it anymore, I just get off and pick it up later. So they've been very supportive on that front.
That is such a interesting story to share, and I think what stands out for me is the response from your leadership. You mentioned a certain lady who was the safety director, that she was in constant communication with you, and I think that is such a great value as a manager to give someone during these during these times of COVID-19. Jean, I want to come to you. What did we need to do as an organization to respond to this pandemic?
Hi, Seema. Thank you for the introduction. I think what we needed to do right at the beginning in March, or even just before the pandemic hit South Africa, I think we recognized as a company that it was a matter of time before COVID hit South Africa. And from March, we had started communicating with our employees to make them aware that, around the anxieties and fears that this pandemic could bring. So I think our first response was to communicate regularly with employees around managing anxieties and stresses and fears around this pandemic. We then went on to look at a business response plan together with a team that would respond to COVID. And Julie, our safety director, was a key player in that team. And some of the initiatives we looked at is to identify jobs that could be done remotely to minimize the number of people and contact in open plan offices and sites. So we were ready to react when the lockdown was announced, to get people to work remotely and equip them from a technological perspective to work remotely. Also, we've identified sites and manufacturing units that could shut down during the lockdown period. That wasn't necessarily an essential site. And I think the important thing is we allowed all of our people to go on leave. So, we paid people, even if they did not have sufficient leave, they could go into negative leave, and we've paid people during that period. We've also got an absolutely robust employee wellbeing program called Thrive. And Thrive, our partner is ICAS, and we've had numerous initiatives that kicked in to support staff and their families and their loved ones. So essentially, Seema, that's, in a nutshell, how we reacted at the outset.
That is so amazing, the response that you had. And if you think about it, we've never had a pandemic like this in the most recent years. And for you as an organization to respond so rapidly without any formal guideline, and it's really, really amazing to see. I want to ask you a follow-on question. Um, what has been the support we give to employees at this time?
So, as I mentioned, Thrive, our wellbeing program, provides a multifaceted approach to supporting employees. So, we've supported them through providing counseling services. So, if an employee, for instance, was tested positive, or there were other employees on the site that tested positive, obviously it caused anxiety. So, we've made counseling services available to them. And in some areas, we also had group sessions virtually until we could do it in person with counselors to ensure that all the employees at the site knew what steps to take, what to look out for, when to isolate, when to stay at home. So, those were some of the support that we gave them. Also, we looked at isolation facilities, because everyone could isolate at home. So we looked into private, public, and the various facilities available to employees to give them that option should they need to isolate or self-quarantine. We've also done testing at sites. A lot of our sites, we've done testing regularly to pick up if somebody was tested positive. We followed up with close contacts, provided support to close contacts. So, there's quite a big umbrella of a basket of initiatives that we've done to support employees. One of the most important things we've done is to stay in touch with employees. We've done various communication campaigns on various topical issues, such as stigmatization, what to look out for, how to prevent. So, it almost felt like that we were repeating ourselves, but, we tried to get the message across through posters, through email, through SMSs, through videos, and just in every form and shape to get it to people so that they would know exactly what to do should they be in a situation. We've also, partnered, like I said, our wellbeing partner is ICAS, and, we partnered very closely with them to call employees to, if somebody was nervous about being a close contact. So we followed up with phone calls and SMSs to say, the support is available should you need it, just to give them somebody to speak to and somebody to advise them what the next steps would be.
That's amazing, Jean. I just want to bring in some of the comments from our chat group, which are very interesting. And as a response to what you have shared with us on the response that Tiger Brands has had to COVID-19, I've got comment from Emma Dodgton. She says, it is amazing how your company responded after finding out that you tested positive. It shows compassion. Then I've got Basitsana, who says, Thrive Wellbeing Program was really helpful and great support to our employees. So I think it really resonated with a lot of guys. It made an impact. So I think we were on the right track with the support that we gave our guys. So Bentley, I want to come back to you. I know that you have a son. What would you say the highs and lows of this lockdown have been on parents and kids?
I think the highs is the ability to spend time. I think it was, because we're always in this chase mode. All of a sudden, you're all in the same space. You're all able to decide what's for lunch, what's for dinner, what's for breakfast. So that's, you're really able to connect as a family. The lows, unfortunately, is, being a working mother, having to balance homeschooling and you having to work from home was a bit challenging, especially if you've got 3 kids, all under 10. It becomes a bit of a challenge. And I think the other challenges that you had is keeping the kids at home for 4 months. There's no dates. It's just a bit frustrating. And I think for me, it even got worse when I got sick because I couldn't help with the homeschooling or anything. So, and hubby is not with us; he's in Mpumalanga. So it was just a very challenging time. But having that circle and support, having to rely on other people to come in, maybe drop off that grade, that weekend, or whatever,
That's amazing. I really resonate with the highs that you have mentioned and the lows. I've got two little ones myself. We had to start learning how to make pizzas, something that I never had to do before. And certainly, you're right, the lows also around having them in the house and we can't go anywhere, no papachinos or playing in the park for some time. And it was seemingly very frustrating. I've got another question for you here, Ntombenshle, and I think a lot of our rising stars would want to hear an answer to this. I'm curious to hear, how do you envision the workplace to be like post this lockdown?
I actually, the one thing that we know for sure is that it can never be what it was before March. And because we've been productive. I mean, look at the Tiger, probably the biggest FMCG business in Africa. It's still operational,
Yeah.
and there's no one sitting at head office. So I actually see a workplace where we'll no longer be constrained by geographies. As long as you've got data and a laptop, you can work from everything. Of course, our factories are a different environment, but for office staff, where you don't have to be physically on a production line, remote working is actually the new way of working.
The future of work.
Yeah.
Jean, what is your take on the same question?
So I agree. I think definitely remote working is here to stay. But I think over and above that, it's going to, from a well-being perspective, I see it as reducing stress because the commute will be cut down. The frustration that's caused, especially in Joburg traffic and the time wasted in traffic is definitely going to be, we're not going to see a lot of that, I think, in the future. I also think that office spaces will be redesigned. I think there will be a lot more focus on sanitation, on sanitizing, on adequate office space between people. So I think definitely there'll be an office redesign. I think there will also be a reduction in the number of offices. So, where you've got two head offices, you'll probably cut down to one with people coming in, and working remotely. So, I think that's my take on what I see the future.
I see. Yeah. So, Jean, just to move away from that question, there has been a focus on mental well-being during this time. What ways can our leaders support this?
So, Seema, I think various ways. And what we've done in Tiger Brands is we anticipated before COVID, we had our theme from a well-being perspective was to focus on mental health in 2020.
Yeah.
COVID aside, we do see that depression and mental health is going to be a massive issue going forward, with more and more people and a new multi-generational workplaces. So mental health is definitely a topical issue and a big focus area for us at Tiger Brands. Initiatives that we focused on is we've provided and are busy providing our leaders with resilience training to equip them to deal with the ever-changing demands of a workplace, of the world, of just life in general. We've also just recently finished a burnout campaign to enable people over a period of time to deal with burnout. So, we took a 4-week period and just sent out different communication, different exercises, different initiatives around burnout. And, we just found that during this time with people working from home, boundaries were blurred, your kind of work day and work week into each other. So we've addressed that through a specific campaign. We've also, run a calendar on mental health. So there's challenges that people can do individually. We've got a website for wellbeing, and people can go in there and look at videos or do the various challenges from a wellbeing perspective. So it's just personal challenges around mindfulness, around exercise, around nutrition, and various of those things.
That's amazing. Jean, it sounds like you did have a comprehensive program on how to deal with COVID-19. I just have a few more comments that come out of our chat group around the the support that they were given. I've got a comment from Lehlogonolo Mashego. She says, well done on the continuous follow-ups, and adds that such a good personal touch and makes one feel valued. So I think that's great. Megandri Govinda says, this measures and support taken by Tiger Brands are amazing. Edith Chechi says, Tiger is just incredible with the support that they provide to the staff. They treat their staff like family who they value and appreciate. I think that is such a good testament of all the work that you have done. We've got a Q&A that is coming up right now, and I would like to field the questions through to you. And these are not my questions. These are the questions from our audience. So my job here is very easy. All I have to do is ask the difficult questions and you guys answer. So I'm going to start with Ntombenhle. I've got a question from Megandri Govinda. She says, what are some of the challenges you faced with remote working, especially with having to juggle the kids and family life?
I think the biggest one is getting the kids to actually understand that when mom is in the meeting, you cannot just barge in and say, Mommy, what does this say? Oh, I need a sandwich and stuff like that.
Correct.
I think that's the biggest challenge. It's just making the kids understand that it's not normal home environment anymore. It's proper working time. From a work point of view, I actually found that, working from home, you find yourself never really switching off because you're not on the computer, so you constantly actually there. I'm not sure whether it's a child, but it's something that I just experienced on my side. But other than that, it gave me an extra 4 hours that I didn't have because of traffic.
Correct.
So that's actually a great plus.
I hope that answers your question, Megandri. I've got a question for Jean here. This is from Takalo Rabambi. She says, do you feel there was a better way to avoid retrenchments in the midst of this pandemic?
I think that, restructuring and Tiger Brands specifically, it was something that we looked at before the pandemic. So unfortunately, I think companies and the economy is such that at the moment that companies will have to look at cutting costs. And unfortunately, one way of cutting costs is to look at reducing staff. And, I think with the pandemic, we've seen that with the remote working and stuff like that, it is and will be necessary in the future, not just for Tiger Brands, but for other companies to look at reducing staff in certain areas.
Correct. I agree with you. And I've got another one for you, Jean. This one is from Shrishka Singh. She says, what are your views on remote working in relation to the productivity? Do you find that we are more productive when we work from home or when we are on site?
So I could speak from a Tiger Brands perspective, and from the views that I've heard from my colleagues and people that I work with, I think we see a lot more productivity. I think, as I've mentioned earlier, we save time on traveling. I mean, I personally used to spend on average at least an hour and a half to 2 hours getting to work and getting back. So in a day, that's 4 hours, So you've also got lesser stress by the time you get to work and sitting 2 hours in traffic, you're kind of already stressed out. So certainly from a personal point of view and from colleagues in Tiger Brands, we've seen a higher level of productivity.
And then, Jean, from an engagement point of view, I've got a question. This is from Edith. She says, do you feel employee engagement will be improved after this experience based on the positive response of the employer?
Certainly, we have a mailbox dedicated to Thrive, and we do get feedback from employees. We also use an SMS campaign method of communicating. So I certainly think in terms of the communication that's gone out there, it hasn't gone out on deaf ears. There's definitely improved the engagement with employees.
That's true. I've got a question for Ntombenhle. How do you feel your female employees have come out of this lockdown, as most of them are primary caregivers, and you mentioned the many roles that we play?
I think we've actually come for. But let me talk about me. Is that I think I appreciate my helper more, because I think you get to understand just what it takes to stay with the kids 24/7 for 4 months. It's not easy. So
Nope.
we're gonna come up more, but we also more connected to our families on that, which calms us and makes us more productive.
I agree with you. I'm going to field one last question before we can close this Q&A, and this is from Charlotte Minsami. She says, Ntombenhle, what advice can you give us coming out of the stronger for us to be healthier, coming out for us to be stronger and healthier and more aware going forward? What advice can you give us?
I think treat everyone that you meet as a potential positive.
Okay.
Don't get your gut down. It doesn't matter who you eat, who it is, whether it's your cousin. Just keep your mask on. I think that's my best advice, and just make sure that the kids also understand that familiarity
And
does keep COVID free.
that is so true, especially now that we're going into this level 2. We have to exercise some greater caution. I agree with you. So I'd like to thank you, Jean and Ntombenhle, for the insightful discussion. I think the one thing that stands out for me is how caring the Tiger Brands leadership team has been at this time to be able to respond so quickly to COVID-19 while making sure that all decisions have got the well-being of the employee at heart. I would like to thank you, ladies, for sharing.
Thank you, Seema.
For having us.
Okay. Welcome again to our Women's Month Rising Star Female Forum webinar hosted by Tiger Brands. Just a reminder again that you can follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. In this segment, this is our second segment, guys, we are going to tackle the topic of leading virtually, so working from home. I have an amazing panel with me, inspiring women. We are blessed to join us today. My first panelist for this discussion, we've got Elizabeth Rashidi. Elizabeth is a seasoned individual with over 15 years experience as both a specialist and a generalist in the HR professional. She is currently responsible for leading the people strategies in the commercial portfolios at Tiger Brands, which includes Tiger Brands International. She has gained experience in management consulting, banking, telecoms, consumer packaging goods industries, and has grown her expertise in strategic talent management, employer branding, leadership development, and organizational effectiveness. Elizabeth, is there anything that you do not do in HR? She holds a BSc in psychology, a postgraduate qualification in HR, and MBA.
Hi, Seema.
Hi. I also have Cynthia Chilan. Cynthia is an executive with more than 25 years of global HR experience in several industries spanning mining, chemical, FMCG, amongst others. She currently provides leadership and functional oversight to the grains and supply chain, I think it's Center of Excellence HR teams at Tiger Brands. Cynthia is passionate about her field of expertise, in particular leadership and development and organizational transformation. She sees herself as an enabling and strategic partner in delivering business strategy and vision. She holds a BA Honors degree in Human Resources and a BSOC Honors in Psychology. I'd like to welcome Cynthia and Elizabeth to the panel. Hi, ladies. How are you doing? Good afternoon.
Hi, Seema. Hi, Seema.
Hi, Elizabeth.
That's great. So welcome on board. I'm going to shoot straight and start with Elizabeth. Can I call you Liz?
You may indeed.
Okay, Liz. Can you share with us the shift we experienced as an organization from being office-based to working virtually?
Yeah, so I think for us, with what Jean and Ntombenhle have shared, we really had geared ourselves up in terms of, just readying our staff in be able to work from home. I'm getting feedback. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I'm also picking that up.
Same here. It seems to have disappeared now.
Okay. Yeah, so the shift has really just been in providing all the support that we can virtually, predominantly, I think, for the Thrive program, as Jean spoke to, and in terms of assistance with mental health, with just tools and techniques on how to manage your time while working from home. So tips on how line managers should lead teams, giving the regular pause periods and breaks, and setting particular times for meetings. And if you are going to have long meetings, allowing people to have an opportunity to take a break. And also just in terms of being able to really, from a digital perspective, I think all of us, and it's not unique to Tiger really, all organizations have really been dragged screaming and kicking into the digital transformation space as a result of COVID. So we are not unique to that, and we're not immune to that. So it is really just ensuring that from a technology perspective, our teams that are working from home are enabled. But we do have a big of the Tiger family that have been burning the midnight oil, ensuring that, as an essential services provider, we've got the products and goods on the tables. So, we really have introduced a lot of incentives. So we had an incentive that we introduced, really just in recognition of our teams that during the peak and the height at the beginning of COVID, really braved, the risks really of being exposed, and we're out there. They went to the factories. We have businesses like our bakery business that is really a 24-hour, 365-day business. And so we need people on our lines all the time. So, we really implemented things like we had sanitizing of taxis that we arranged ourselves that were supported by the organizations that actually transported our staff to and from our sites, ensuring that they arrived home and at work safely. So I guess those are really some of the key shifts as an organization that we put in place.
Thank you so much for that, Liz. I'm going to pose the same question to Cynthia. What would you say the key shifts have been?
Okay, thanks, Seema, for the question. I think in my view, there were pockets of challenges, given that a large proportion of our colleagues are plant-based without the option to work virtually. So these also included our support teams like HR, the planning teams, leadership teams, etc. So what we needed to be cognizant of is that our colleagues who are working at the cold front were also taken care of and being cared for. I think Jean talked a lot about the Thrive interventions that we introduced as a measure to enable this. We also introduced special mechanisms for those who continue to work on site as a means to recognize them. This was also to ensure that we weren't perceived to be favoring some employees over others. And I think whilst initially there was a lot of anxiety in terms of our colleagues coming to work, through engagement, continuous communication, as well as ensuring and driving the safety protocol, we managed to overcome this. I also think historically working from home was more the exception than the rule. So we have, as an organization, become quite accustomed to seeing people in face-to-face meetings. So this was also an adjustment for some colleagues and leaders, where you couldn't see the other person you were having conversations with, to read their body language, or to watch them roll their eyes if you had made a silly comment or asked an inappropriate question. But it didn't take us long to get into a rhythm. And I think managing the safety protocols was important for all of us. And I think one of the things that we've managed to do quite well is to, I know from an HR perspective, We have a monthly HRLT, so we put our videos on so that we can see our colleagues and to engage with them a bit better. I know we talked about the world post-COVID, so it's going to be interesting to see how we sort of reverse engineer processes once we go back to being in the office, because I think we've all become pretty accustomed to working from home. I think a big learning for us is the ability to use tech. Might sound silly, but we've all learned to sign our documents electronically and to save trees by limiting the amount of printing that we do.
When you mentioned the printing, I testify. I haven't had to print anything in the past 4 months. I wonder why we needed to print in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a follow-up question, Cynthia. What would you say were the challenges experienced in this time?
Yeah, thanks, Seema. I think the main challenge was granting everyone access to technology. This included laptops where employees have desktops, and we do have some employees who still work off desktops, ensuring appropriate VPN connectivity, sufficient data on 3G cards, and just overall making sure that our teams were equipped with the right tools to get on with their jobs productively. I think another challenge we experienced, which is really out of our control, was the power outages through load shedding. So you get on a call and colleagues drop off because they lose connectivity, as an example. I think this was also mentioned earlier by Jean. Our workday also became quite fluid in that we didn't put in boundaries to mark the end of the day. So, where you have, I'm packing up my bag and I'm going home now, the workday sort of seamlessly moved into the evening, and you could often, if you're not aware of your timing, could work late into the night, early hours of the morning. I think I was reminded by my leader that I was burning the candles at both ends and that I needed to take some time off. And I did do that, and I must say it has made a world of difference. So you're really no good to anyone if you are burning the candles at both ends, because you're not good to yourself either. For leaders, I think it's also about acknowledging that we are working in business unusual times, and that we also needed to accommodate employees' personal circumstances, especially those with families, etc. In terms when they talked about her kids being homeschooled, so I think many parents at Tiger Brands also face the same challenge. So where we could, we allowed some flexibility at the start of meetings or the start of the day to allow parents to get children up and running. And I think on a lighter note, we also learned to accommodate the occasional intruder through kids who needed a hug or to tell you they passed a test that as a parent you were more stressed about than they were. And we also got introduced to a few dogs, birds, and chickens.
Cynthia, thanks for that. I ask you two ladies, because there's a bit of feedback coming from the discussion. If you're not answering a question, can you please mute, just so that we can manage the feedback coming through. I've got a few comments from the chat. It's very active. I've got a comment from Rebone Mabunda. She says, employee safety is not compromised at Tiger. Thank you and well done. I think that is great. A few comments around the sound. I hope it's going to be minimized, the background. And I will ask the rest of the questions later when we get to our Q&A. Elizabeth, what would you say were the positives that came out of working virtually as a team?
So I think for me, it's probably been that we've been able to get so much more done. I don't think that we actually anticipated how much work we could actually get done. I think it's because we've had to balance, and as Cynthia says, the boundaries in terms of, this work-life integration. We're no longer working in a work-life balance situation. It's now work-life integration. But the additional hours that we've been granted from working from home has allowed us to actually generate so much more in a very short space of time. If I just think about kind of the response initiatives that were put in place as a result of COVID, the communication toolkits, the initiatives from Thrive, the incentives that we spoke about, all of that was done in a matter of a month. That we needed to generate. And if you think about it, had we been at the office, you probably would have had so much more lead time to kind of work on specific projects and out. And I found that this time has actually allowed us to be much more focused and much more deliberate in terms of the decisions that we make, and being able to actually get a lot out. The positives, I guess, also, I think, borrowing on what Ntombenhle said, is that we do get to spend a little bit more time with family. I must be honest, I think after the first month, I have 20-year-old twins. So the first month, I actually did want to go back to the office, spending all that time with them at home. But honestly, it is a blessing to be able to be afforded the opportunity to spend a lot more time with family, because when we're in offices, we spend 90% of our time in the office. So that has been quite a big positive as well.
Yeah, I can imagine the 20-year-olds and the Wi-Fi and the data. Cynthia, how have we supported our employees while they work from home?
So, Seema, I think because Tiger Brands is such a big company with presence in so many different parts of the country, we as leaders are already quite used to managing virtual teams, as our teams are geographically quite dispersed. So if I can give you an example, in my space, and this is really the bulk of supply chain, I had weekly check-ins. I did regular Skype calls with the team. And if that wasn't sufficient, we had a WhatsApp chat group that we created where we shared, updates with each other. If somebody wanted to ask a quick question and they weren't able to get a hold of a colleague, they used this platform to ask their question. And it was also a good platform for us to provide regular updates on work that needed to be done, or what we had to do a piece of work collaboratively, just to remind each other of deadlines, etc. So we also shared, as Jean mentioned earlier, quite a lot of information through emails from Thrive, as well as our corporate communications platforms. And I think, in terms of checking in with our teams, in terms of, understanding of the communication, offering clarity, etc., through these Skype calls, I think that went a long way. I think for some of the other businesses that I support, we also had a similar format. Regular check-ins at least twice a week, and then obviously chatting to each other via WhatsApp, telephone calls, etc. So this also provided an opportunity to engage and collaborate. We've unfortunately had some of our colleagues who have lost loved ones to the pandemic, and we've had some of them that have been personally sick from COVID. So being able to just extend a gesture to the employee to let them know that they're being thought of through a bunch of flowers and a greeting, and just checking in with them to make sure that they're okay and that they have the required support they need, made a very big difference to them. So that's what we've done, just as a high-level overview in terms of support to our employees.
That's very comprehensive. And I'm getting such great feedback on the chat on the support that you have given. Liz, I'm going to come back to you here. What would you say the future of work is in the context of leading and working virtually?
So I think it speaks to kind of a concept of mindfulness. I think leaders are being asked to be a lot more mindful in terms of how they connect, right, with their people, with their teams. It is very difficult to connect and lead virtually. And you're supposed to be a lot more creative, I guess, as well, in terms of how you create those moments that matter for your team. So if I share just what we've done in our space with our team. So, Cynthia spoke to people coming in to share news on their tests, etc. We've had a number of visitors and very welcome visitors to our meetings, or voices that we normally hear on our calls and asking mommy for juice. And you actually need to be able to pivot as a leader and be able to accommodate that. So we've recently had a connection with the integrated team members, as we call them. So we had a virtual session with all the kids of the members of my team. So we got to meet everybody's kids. We had a game that everybody played, and a competition between the families. And those are moments that actually matter. And it's those kind of things that leaders are going to have to do in terms of connecting and leading virtually. I think when it comes to the delivery of work, because that's also quite key, we need to be able to, I guess, rethink mindsets around managing performance, right? So I think gone are the days where we're going to have a scorecard that will be managed over a 12-month period. We probably are going to have to be a lot more agile in terms of how we set and set our goals and our targets, and more frequent engagement and interaction in terms of the delivery of those targets. So I think, in my view, that's really how leaders are going to have to shift. Communication is key, so constant communication is important on various platforms. So we are all connecting in so many different ways. So that is also going to continue to be very key. But I think for me, probably the most important one is just being mindful and being conscious of how you continuously connect with your teams.
That is such a great answer. And I love that initiative of having that Bumbaya and having all the kids come into these sessions and say hi. And we all know if you don't invite them, they jump in on the call anyway. So I'm going to jump straight into the QA. There's so many questions that I'm getting from the chat. And I think I'm happy to get into those questions. And the first one is Cynthia. Would Tiger Brands give those who prefer working from home the option to do so? And how would this impact the working environment? This is from McGandry.
So I think with the current experience that we've had now, having worked from home and not dropping balls and improving the productivity levels, I saw there was a question around performance management as an example. I think our leaders have become a little bit more open to ensuring that teams deliver on outputs rather than how much time you spend in front of the computer. And I think we've worked now on a basis of trust that people work in accordance to their KPIs and whatever deliverables that we've agreed to. So I think it's going to become easier for us going forward to have a bit more of a flexi workplace arrangement. I do think for some of the big meetings, you're going to have to go in to have that face-to-face conversation. But if we were able to keep South Africa fed during this time, by and large, through the, keeping up the production levels, etc., I think the business case is there that working remotely is certainly a doable option for us going forward.
Okay. Liz, bringing a new employee on board can be quite challenging working virtually. How has HR amended their induction virtually?
So thank you. Actually, that's something that is a piece of work that we're actually very proud of as Tiger, that we were able to really adapt very quickly to the requirements of that. It can be very daunting starting a new organization in normal instances. It's even more, frustrating and I guess stressful when you have actually not met anyone that you're working with. So we have introduced a virtual onboarding process that in the back end allows us to ensure that seamlessly the individual's information is in our systems. Our IT guys are on board and ready in terms of issuing the machines. And machines are able to be distributed to those individuals. But we also have a virtual onboarding session that's run by our talent Center of Excellence team. that has been run very, very successfully, where individuals that are joining the organizations are able to connect as their first introduction to Tiger virtually. We've got leaders that actually join, welcoming the individuals, and different speakers from the organization that actually are an integral part of the onboarding program. So we've adjusted very quickly in terms of ensuring that people don't feel lost as they join Tiger virtually. I think we might have lost Seema.
Yeah.
See, I don't know if there's anything you want to add there in terms of perhaps some of the experiences of the people on site who have joined us since COVID has started.
Yeah, I think the virtual onboarding program has worked really well. So much so that we've introduced other modules to it now. So, I think it's definitely an option to, from a cost saving perspective, to fly people around to get to head office for an onboarding program. I think we've certainly used the opportunity to do that, to eliminate. So I think it's here to stay, the virtual onboarding program. We achieved as good as results as we would have in a face-to-face onboarding program.
Absolutely.
We seem to have lost Seema due to a connection error, so I will take over in the meantime.
Tanya, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I thought I had clicked on my mic. I will be taking over from Seema as we are having connection errors with her. She's struggling. I have a question from Angelique Null. She says, have you integrated virtual training and team building exercising into the workplace? And sorry, it's just popped down. The chat log is super busy.
I see that.
Have you integrated team building exercising into the workplace?
Yeah.
Is there any recommended free online apps that you are aware of for external business to support online sessions?
So just from a virtual learning perspective, we're running a frontline leadership program now called LIFT. And that's been successfully run. We ran a pilot a few weeks ago, successfully run, maintaining the social distancing protocols, etc. So an employee is assigned a laptop and they manage the social distancing in terms of the meterage apart, etc. And we've achieved very good results, and it's actually driven collaboration. So if you're in a region and you're hosting a program, you can invite other businesses to be part of that program. So it's not just restricted to a site. And I find that collaboration and exchange of ideas, etc., has been far beneficial for our employees. In terms of team building exercises, I'm not aware that we've run any of that at the moment. We've obviously had to prioritize, but we've certainly kept our town hall sessions, communication platforms with people, making sure that we don't have more than 50 people in a room at any given point. So maintaining all the COVID protocols. I'm sorry, I don't remember the last part. Oh, she's back.
She's back. The last part of the question, let me just find it again.
Yeah.
This catalog is super crazy busy.
Can I jump in there while he's going?
Yes, by all means, by all means.
I want to ask Cynthia this. We know how important culture is in an organization. What are some of the ways we can remain connected, engaged while working?
So, Seema, I think this one's quite simple. I think as leaders and colleagues, it's really about making time to connect. You do that through virtual coffee sessions, making yourself available for the teams to reach out during times of stress and anxiety, or even just a general catch up in terms of what's happening in one's personal space. If I use myself as an example, I'm not always immediately available to my team, but my team is aware that if I can't take their call when they call, or I can't answer an email as soon as they send it, that I'm only as good as my word. So I have a reliability complex, so I know that I need to get back to them, and they know that they can count on me to get back to them. So, I might not have all the answers to all the questions that they have, but at least I can support and point them in the right direction. And I think through that, we create a network of best practice, and, we can just help each other to solve the problem. I know this might sound a little bit off the beaten path, but I think also having a sense of humor is quite important, because everything right now is so serious. So sometimes when we check in, it's often, and whilst we're waiting for other colleagues to join, often it doesn't matter which meeting we're in, there'll be some ragging that happens on a colleague, but in a gentle, non-threatening way. Colleagues also find it quite interesting that other people share anecdotes of, what family experiences or what they've done on the weekend.
I see you off. I'll take over again. No worries.
Okay.
Bye.
Shall I continue?
I am back. You are more than welcome to wrap up with the question that Sima asked. If you have wrapped up, I've got another question for one of you lovely ladies.
Yeah, go for it. I was just explaining what we can do to stay connected and engaged.
So I have a question from Jamie Klutter. How do you keep team players working even though they are at home? How did you keep people motivated, which I'm sure must be very hard, especially everybody working virtually?
Do you want to tackle this, Liz?
Yes, I will. Thanks, Sim. So you have to first and foremost, I guess, as leaders and as an organization, work from a premise of trust that that people are responsible individuals in terms of what they're tasked to deliver on. So it becomes difficult leading virtually if you're really going to be focused on how many hours somebody has logged on for, because we'll really be logged on and not productive. So it really is focusing on outputs, as was mentioned earlier. And what we've done, for example, in our environment is we kind of weekly and sometimes daily deliverable, depending on the priority and the criticality of the work that we're doing. And we check in very often. So we have weekly one-on-ones where we check in, but we also have weekly check-ins as a whole team, where we talk about what's really critical at the moment, what support do people need. And that way, as a leader, I guess you are always on top of what's happening and what your team are busy with.
That's amazing. You guys sound like you are almost like a family, constantly checking up and motivating and encouraging everybody. It's amazing. I have another question for you, Elizabeth, from Rusiwe. Actually, Elizabeth, what are the ups and downs of talent management?
Oh, that's an interesting one. The ups, maybe let me start with the ups. And maybe the ups probably in the current context that we're working on. The ups, I think, and I talk wearing a tiger hat, is that I'm very proud that we've got amazing, talented Tiger brands. Very proud and almost anxious sometimes because we are a fertile hunting ground, I might say, for some of our competitors. But the ups of talent management, I think, is making sure that firstly, you know the talent that you have as an organization. You are connected in terms of understanding what are the requirements for the development of that talent and capability development. So we've really focused in a very big way this year, and really starting even in the last couple of years as Tiger, on ensuring that capability development is a priority for us. So building of our academies, our functional academies in supply chain, in the different environments, and ensuring that people that we've identified as talent are well taken care of. We spend a lot of time talking about talent at Tiger Brands, and ensuring that talent moves. The up for us, and I'm very proud in the month of celebrating women, is that in this month alone in Tiger, we've seen the promotion of a number of our female colleagues into more senior portfolios, bigger complex portfolios, and for us that's been a proud moment. I think lastly, the big up for talent, creating an environment where people remain connected and engaged, creating that environment where you ignite people's experiences, as we term it in Tiger, and creating that great place to work. The downs, I guess, is not everybody is going to be able to be talent. And what do you do, and what opportunities do you create for everybody to feel that the organization is looking after them? So we always talk, high pose and people that we really want to focus on because we have to build succession plans, etc. But it's also equally important to realize that we do have, if you look at the bell curve, that 70% in the middle that is equally important. And what do you do as an organization to keep those people also connected? So that probably is a challenge for a lot of organizations, and probably one area that I could look at as a down for management.
May I just support Liz there quickly? I think from a pipeline building perspective, we are also starting with our MTs. So we've got a program, a management trainee program in place, and we've been making a concerted effort that to fill our pipeline, we need to have females in place. I mean, there's sometimes an unconscious bias that the hard jobs, especially in the operations space, can only be done by men because they have the muscles and the strength, etc. And we've recently put some strong females into the bakery space as an example, and it's reaping or showing its rewards. So we've made a concerted effort now that part of our gender equity program is to start right at the sort of early career phase in terms of bringing a lot more females into the organization. So to grow that specific segment of our talent, to make sure that when opportunities become available further down the line, that they are ready to take up those positions.
Thanks so much for that. So there's a whole general perception on the chat group that you've got a great sense of humor.
Yeah.
Everyone is and I agree with them.
It's not a perception, Seema, it's a reality.
That's right.
Thank you, Liz.
I've got a question from Vuiswa here. She says, do you think the commercial office rental market could be affected with a move towards virtual working after COVID-19? I'm not sure who can answer that between the two of you ladies.
I can give it a stab. I think Jean has also made it apparent. I think it's just a view. I don't have any science or data behind it. But if you look at the number of cars on the road these days, I mean, you can quickly zip through the shops and back home, whereas previously it might have taken you 4 times as long. And so I definitely see fewer cars on the road. A lot more people are being cautious. So which means that the work from home scenario is going to become even stronger going forward. So I definitely think that a lot more companies would be looking to optimize their rental space. If I look at Tiger, I mean, we have 2 offices, so we'll need to see how we perhaps look at bringing all our teams into one space. And I think that's something that Jean referred to earlier as well. So maybe a lot more hot desking rather than having dedicated offices that we work out of and then nobody really uses that space. So yes, now that I've extended my service to property rentals, I think that's a view.
Thanks for that. I've got a question from Jamie. Jamie says, when choosing a mentor, what should we look for? I think, Liz, you can take that.
So I think it really depends on what it is that you're looking to get out of that mentorship relationship, right? So I often look at it as a mentor is somebody that advises and somebody that supports you in terms of the role that you're in and how to navigate some of those complexities of that role. And you need to be clear around what it is that you're looking to get out of that individual. So contracting with a mentor is very important, right? Because typically mentors would be able to guide you in terms of the challenges of the particular role that you're having versus, for example, a coach who supports you in terms of how do I navigate the landscape of the working world in general and some of the challenges that I'm experiencing in my organization. So one needs to be very, very clear around what you want out of that relationship with. So it probably isn't a straight cut answer of this is what you must expect out of a mentor. It really depends on the challenges you're having or what it is that you want to get out of that relationship.
So I think what you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is that you need to align the objectives of that mentorship with the person that could potentially bring you closer to those objectives.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, you know, we are about to embark on a program called Mentorship Circles at Tiger Brands. And it really is an initiative to help individuals who want support from leaders in the organization with a number of various issues that they may be challenged with. But the program also looked at mentoring in groups, right? So it's not necessarily on a one-on-one basis, but also it's mentoring groups of individuals who may bring to the table different challenges that they may be experiencing in the different facets of their workspaces. We've got people who work in sales. We've got people who work in production on the lines. We've got people who work in marketing and research and development. So those mentoring circles may be made up of a number of different individuals who bring to the table their own challenges. And that mentor role is really to draw from their experience, because we obviously look for individual who has been a leader and is able to provide that kind of a stewardship and guidance to those individuals, and then be able to kind of understand what the challenges of that group or those individuals are and provide that guidance. So that's really, I think, my take in terms of what a mentor needs to provide.
I also think that just to help, or just a view from my side, I think it's important that you have chemistry with your mentor, because there's no point to you sitting and having a conversation with somebody about your specific requirements and them not feeling you and you're not feeling them. So chemistry is quite important. And I think there's differing thoughts about, do you have one mentor or multiple mentors? And I think it's really up to the individual to decide that. If they're getting all their needs met through the contracting process through one mentor, then it's great for them. If they feel that that particular mentor is a subject matter expert on a particular area that they need support with, and they can get the other bits of support from somebody else, there's nothing stopping them. So it's really about individual preferences.
I agree. I've got a question for Bagandri Govinda here. She says, apart from humor, what other forms of creative engagement methods have you seen in meetings to keep the nerves at bay?
Sure. We quite an open sharing team, so I don't think any one of us needs a push or a shove to share what happened on the weekend, or something that an accomplishment of a kid, or something that your husband's done, or a family member, or something funny that happened in the workplace, etc. So the virtual coffee sessions, you pour yourself a coffee and we have a bit of a catch up and sort of ease into it, so that everyone then feels relaxed. I think now with the alcohol ban taken away, we might even go to having more virtual wine evenings. provided that's that way from us.
So just before the ban, the ban came back and now has been lifted, we actually had a virtual drink session as an HR leadership team ourselves after a very long 2-day strategy session, which was absolutely lovely. And in my own team, we had a lovely virtual drink session. And I think what was different, borrowing from the session we had at the HRLT, in Teams, and I'm sure you can do it in other platforms, you can change the background of where you're sitting. So we took a tour around the world, and we all had to share our favorite destinations and why they were favorite destinations, what's on your wish list. Once the travel ban has been lifted, where do you want to go? So it was lovely to kind of get into everyone's world through that perspective, and that's been quite nice, in terms of how you connect with your team.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's such a great initiative. I want to steal that and do that with my team. Ladies, I could chat with you all afternoon. There is such a great chemistry amongst the three of us, and the conversation is so interesting, but I have to wrap up now. I want to thank you, Liz and Cynthia, for the great conversation. You have really displayed how innovative and agile yet caring Tiger Brands has been in adjusting to leading virtually. I wish you well and hope to connect with you soon.
Thank you so much, Seema. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Seema. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for Rising Stars.
My pleasure. I want to just send a quick reminder that one of you here will win a 1-hour mentorship session with Tiger Brands. We will connect with you privately over the next few days. It's going to be a tough decision for sure. And thank you to Tiger Brands for giving the time today to host this and reach out to all of us. To all of you, we hope you enjoyed the event, and please watch for our next session at www.risingstar.co.za. To those of you previously grad stars, our most employable students program, don't miss the upcoming Grad Star Employer webinars hosted by Old Mutual and Epiroc. Don't miss out on the opportunity to be noticed. You can also access the links on www.gradstar.com. Thank you to all our organizers who worked in the background to make this a success. Rea leboga. Thank you and goodbye.